On this episode of Africans in Sports,
Nigeria represented at the Winter Olympic Games for the very first time.
What does it mean to you to be a part of African history?
Every year it starts to transform and feel a little different. Our last race for me was just super emotional because just looking back on like where we started to like crossing the finish line, everything kind of came full circle. So for me, that was like the biggest thing.
What's going on, Africans and Sports fans? We're back with another one. I'm your host, Chris Kosizi Strawn, and today we're coming to you from the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas to be exact. Today's guest is a major part of putting Africa in the history books. One of 3 women to put Nigeria on the map in the sport of bobsledding. Welcome to the show, Ngozi Onwumere.
What's happening, y'all?
What's good, girl?
What's good?
I said it right.
Yep.
Onwumere.
See, I said that makes you real when you say it with an accent. You gotta come correct. You gotta come correct.
We ain't playing out here.
You know, welcome to the Dallas, Texas.
Thank you. I like Dallas. I like the big city vibe. I feel like I'm growing on Texas. I'm a New York guy, but Texas showed me love, so I like it.
You know, they say everything's bigger here, so it really is true.
I could agree with that.
Really is true. Yeah.
Born and raised here?
I was born and raised here, so Mesquite, Texas. You know, everybody has this thing about saying, like, if you're from Mesquite, you actually have to say Mesquite versus Dallas, Texas. But I was born here, born and raised, did every sport in the book. Kind of just went on from there.
I love it.
My childhood.
What does it mean to you to be a part of African history?
You know, every year it starts to transform and feel a little different. As we were going through it, I knew it was like a monumental moment, but it just didn't feel like it yet. I think it came full circle when we started to see like little girls come up to us and say like, oh, you're my idol and stuff like that. You're my icon. That's when it really started to ring true. But like, I think the years after that, when you get back into your everyday life, that's when it starts to ring like, oh, wow, this really was history, right?
Yeah.
So
what does it mean for you to be that person that young girls can look up to in that aspect?
Man, that right there was pretty much why we did it. For me specifically, that was like my highlight. Just knowing that I could be someone that I didn't necessarily have growing up. Even going into bobsled, I didn't even know what the sport was. So to have that representation there, you know, for little kids to look up to and know what the sport is and just really start to invoke those thoughts like, okay, you can make up something too and be good at it. Like nobody in Nigeria knew what bobsled was. And now, you know, it's pretty much a national sport. People know about it. I remember people were calling it bobsledge at first.
Oh, wow.
So now you can actually go to Nigeria and people are like, oh, yeah, bobsled. We know it. The 3 girls. They did it, right?
Wow. Okay, so take me back to Mesquite, all the way back. Let's talk about just the Nigerian roots of you growing up here in Texas.
Yeah, so it was interesting in that me and Sean always talk about this too in Akwama. Growing up here in the States, it was unique in that like you just had a taste of Nigeria. It wasn't necessarily like you were there. So for me, I was always Nigerian first in the household, and then when I walked out, I was American.
She said the same thing.
Yeah. So we talk about that all the time, just being engulfed in like eating the food and talking the language and stuff like that. I won't say I learned all the bad words first in Igbo. But
that's usually how it goes.
Yeah. So just having that and just my parents raising me Nigerian first and going out and feeling confident being Nigerian. I remember the times where people called you African booty scratchers and we were kind of like not so proud of being Nigerian, and now we're in such a time where it's like a great time to be African
right now.
And
sure is.
Just the pride that I have. So having that upbringing just really, you know, helped me stay grounded in who I was and knowing that I come from somewhere, you know, knowing that everybody's looking for a place to call home and knowing that I know my home, that's big.
What was it like growing up as a first generation Nigerian woman?
We as first generation individuals, we have something unique that nobody else has. Like our people from back home, like literally they have that experience, but we have the experience of we can still call ourselves Nigerian, but we also know a whole different culture, a whole different world that makes us more relatable to other people too. So, yeah.
You're so right about that.
Yeah.
You kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I love that we're in such a time where you literally can just be yourself. There's not one definition of a Nigerian. There's not one definition of an African. We are who we are, and we're representing and presenting ourselves to the world as we see it.
Okay.
Food.
Tell me about the parents. What made them come here?
So funny story. My dad came here. He used to work for Radio Nigeria. So he did like talk shows and stuff like that. He came here for school trying to do broadcasting. And the first week he said that he came here, he didn't know anything. He said that he didn't eat for a week,
Wow.
I was like, how did you survive?
How?
He legitimately like got things out of the vending machine and was eating stuff like that.
Man,
and it was like,
Dad?
maybe this is American food. And so, contrary, my mom, she kind of had just been a world traveler. Like, she's my goals, like to visit everywhere and like kind of get engulfed in the culture. My mom actually speaks both Yoruba and Igbo.
Oh, nice.
So she was raised in Ibadan. And then afterwards, she went to boarding school in English. So once they both got here, they met each other, and that was it. That's all she wrote.
Take me back to the beginning of your sports journey. Where does it start?
So it started here in Mesquite, or Dallas, Texas. I did basketball. I played basketball my whole life for the most part.
You were a
So
hooper.
yeah, and I still hoop to this day.
Okay.
Like I go in the gym and do some pickup games with the
shots
guys.
up?
Like the guys will see me walk in and be like, "Oh, that pretty girl." I'm like, "She ain't gonna do nothing." And I'm
She
like,
giving buckets, huh?
"Nah." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna, wrap your ankles up." But it started here in Dallas. I played basketball all the way up into my junior year in high school, and one of my coaches was like, "You should do track and field," and I was like, "Okay, that's cool as long as I don't have to run." I just was not one for the running and stuff like that. So they put me in the long jump, and that year I ended up actually making it to the regional meet. And for me, that was like big. At that time, like in high school, that was like my biggest faith move. Like, oh, I'm leaving something that I knew and I was familiar with to something like unfamiliar territory. So you can kind of say that was kind of like a revisit with the bobsled thing. It's because I was leaving what I knew for the unknown territory. But I ended up competing in regionals. I ended up winning that meet, and for me specifically, I had not really been on anybody's radar athletically in terms of scholarships, and that was my first opportunity where I won it, and people were kind of like, "Who's this girl?" Like, I haven't seen her at any of the meets prior to that. So that was the first time I really saw like sports could really happen for me, and could really transform into something bigger.
Take me to the University of Houston and just that whole experience of running track. How'd that go?
It was interesting in that I was recruited for long jump, but I never did long jump. I ended up becoming a sprinter. So I did that for some time. My first 2 years there were pretty rough in the transition. And I didn't really know if I had made a good decision at that point, because I was kind of like, well, I switched to this whole new sport. Didn't really know like if it was going to be successful. Then my junior year again, lucky number 3. Junior year, I had a year that pretty much took off, and went to the NCAA finals and started to see, that sports could be a thing again. So I always had those moments where it's like, am I supposed to be in this space, or am I supposed to be a doctor? Or am I supposed to be a lawyer? Am I supposed to just focus on my studies? Granted, both of them are important. But University of Houston really gave me a groundwork to start pushing through things, and then helping me understand the new levels of sports. Like, high school, I would say, was more so just understanding the sport in general and that it could get me to the next level. College was more so giving me the groundwork to be successful as a professional athlete.
So do you feel like the sprinting helped you in bobsledding?
Oh, for sure. It's all speed, all speed. One thing I would say is track and field athletes do so well in bobsled because of that speed aspect and the agility aspect. Not too many athletes can go into a sport and have that agility also with the forward motion that you need to be a brake woman or brakeman. But overall, yeah. And then just the discipline. I feel like every sport that comes into bobsled after that, just having discipline, doesn't matter what sport you come from. If you have that discipline, if you have like the regimen to be successful, continue to just hack away at it, you'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. Hard work, dedication.
Yeah, that's what it is.
At what point did you realize that you can be a professional athlete?
I don't think I ever realized that, to be honest. It was just kind of like really just, one step after the other, and it's just started to organically lead to that. But I will say it was probably always an aspiration, but did I ever feel comfortable in that space? No. And I think that also not feeling comfortable in that space continued to help me better myself. I was never complacent. I always felt like the underdog, that I had to be better, had to get better every day. So.
You got a dog in you.
You know?
You super competitive at everything, huh?
Yeah. Pretty much. Like,
I can tell.
literally cooking pancakes. Who's going to cook the best pancake? Yeah.
So tell me about the African Games where you competed in the World Relays.
Oh, yeah.
What did that mean for you to compete for Nigeria in that way? Like, that's big time.
Man, that was like the grand finale. It was the grand finale for me because it had been a long season, and it was kind of just like, okay, we're here now.
Yeah.
Like, this is your first time. This is your big debut. I was kind of bummed in that I was not completely healthy when competing, but nonetheless, just honored to represent Nigeria. I think anytime you step out and you're representing, for me, Nigeria, it's huge because not too many people get to do it. And it's always a good opportunity for us to just bring positivity back to Nigeria. I think oftentimes we hear so many negative things about Nigeria and Nigeria sports. So just knowing that anytime I'm represented, you're going to hear positive things about the country, even though there are still things we need to work on. I think a good start is just making that message positive so we can start the conversations behind the scenes.
We got to keep it positive at all times.
Yeah. The world is watching.
For real.
Literally.
And it's such a negative place. We need to shine some light in it.
Yeah, and Africa is such a place of progressiveness in this day and age where, like, not necessarily just America is looking at it, but other countries are looking at Africa. And like we were talking about the initiative of like moving back to Africa now, all of those things pushing towards like making Africa a better place. So the change starts with us.
Now you competed with some pretty big time people on that team who have big names out in Nigeria.
Yeah.
What was it like for you as an American being a part of that?
It was interesting in that being just from the diaspora, just trying to make sure that we bridge the gap between athletes home and abroad. That's always been a really big thing for me, and just helping us understand each other, because I think athletes that live back home sometimes think that we're very different, but we're actually very similar in that we just really love culture. We really love Nigeria. We really want to bring a positive light back to Nigeria. So just having that background and seeing how people were born, seeing like what things they had to go through to get to that position that they're in now, that was always a good, groundwork for me to just be able to see.
Take me back to your relationship with Sheung. You guys go back. We talked about Houston, but what's that dynamic like between you guys?
Yeah, so it was unique in that in high school, for me, it was a really scary time for me to go to college and not know exactly if I was going to know anyone there. So Sean being that point of contact for me and my family kind of just gave us, a really sense of just being calm about going to college and transitioning in, and then also having that mentorship aspect throughout college. So that it was interesting in that, like, throughout college, it was almost like a mentor-mentee type of relationship. But after that, we became more so friends. So that seeing that transition was super amazing. And then bobsled only expanded upon that.
What was she like as a coach? Was she tough, or was she more of like the player's coach type?
So she didn't coach me directly, but she was a part of the sprint side of things. So for the most part, for me, I know for myself, I would just go to her to complain for the most part. So like, she was the listening ear for me. The person that would always bring it back to like, okay, this is why you're here. This is the purpose. You might be going through this, but let's get always goal oriented. So she could always see and look past like what I was going through at that time and see and encourage me to be the best that I could be, regardless of that.
What was the conversation like when she came to you and said, we're about to put on this bobsledding team for Nigeria. Are you down?
Yeah, so she actually came to me and was like, we usually used to have like annual yearly meetings or whatever after I graduated college. So she came to me and was like, hey, we're gonna have dinner or whatever. Funny thing is, we showed up to that dinner, and I actually have the picture. We showed up to that dinner and we had the same exact clothes on.
Wow.
Like, we had a black shirt on, maroon pants, and like literally had on the same clothes. And during that meeting, we had that meeting, and then the next day after, she texted me. I think it was either a text or a call, but she literally was like, what do you think about bobsled team? And I was like, what is that? like first and foremost. I was like, what is that? And I was like, she's like, well, we're getting ready to introduce it. And I remember 2 years prior, we had met with the president of the federation at the time, and we're talking about bobsled, and he was laughing at it because he was just kind of like, I don't even know what that is, or if Nigerians would be interested. Yeah. So to see that 2 years later come full circle, that was amazing in itself. And, you know, we kind of just talked through it. I remember we had 2 meetings initially before starting to train. So the second one, we had a meeting where I actually met Akwama at her house, and it was kind of like our official meeting. We made this video where we're like, we're actually doing this, y'all. We're going to be the bobsled team. So, you know, it's interesting.
Wow. Just through all this whole experience, you guys got to go on Ellen. I love Ellen. Like, I want to go out there and dance for Ellen. I seen you popping, doing your thing. Like, what?
No, it wasn't me. I was an encourager now.
What's that like being on Ellen?
Man, that moment, because I watched the Ellen show. So for me, that was like really just a moment where everything kind of came full circle. I was like, I watched this lady every day.
For real.
And like now I'm on her show. And so for me, and Sean and them will tell you, like behind the stage, I was kind of like, they're like, God, he's the one that loves Ellen. Like you're going to be on the show now. And I was just kind of like, just quiet in awe, like taking in the moment. I remember backstage, we met Tiffany Haddish too. So just seeing that, like all the transitions of what it takes to put the show on. And then like that 5 minutes, for the most part, we only got to talk to Ellen for 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes was like, I'm here, you know?
Yeah, for real. I'm sure the whole fan back home was watching that.
Yeah, and I love how we just stayed authentic. Like every media outlet that we ever did, for the most part, it was just giving you guys ourselves.
Yeah, you have to. It's important.
Yeah, and just having that balance. Being an introvert, sometimes I have the ability to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
So like when people meet me sometimes behind the scenes, they're like, oh, she's actually really quiet. And then like, sometimes in front of the camera, I'm like, I don't know, it just depends on the day that you meet me. So like, just knowing that Ellen experience was super authentic is really special to me.
Big time high.
Yeah.
Give me some more of the highs and lows of this Olympic journey that you guys were on.
So I'm always a sucker to start with the positives.
Okay.
Our last race for me was just super emotional because just looking back on like where we started to like crossing the finish line, everything kind of came full circle. So for me, that was like the biggest thing. Another high for me was going back to Nigeria and visiting a charter school and like just seeing how excited the kids were to see like me, somebody from Dallas, Texas, that's a normal girl that just had a vision that acted upon it. That was a big thing for me. And then also just having more opportunity to go back to like Nigeria, go home, you know? I think a lot of times we don't have those opportunities. So like to know that within a year I was visiting frequently and like being able to actually call it my home, that was a highlight for me. And then for the negatives, there's always negatives. I just think that the learning curve was really vicious in that like, you know, you got to learn it. It's a new sport. It's not going to be easy to learn. You're going to have injuries. Injuries is a really big thing for track and field athletes. Coming from track and field to bobsled, we're usually underweight. So I had quite a few injuries during the season. And then that's probably the only downside I would have. I think any experience you're going to have negatives and positives, but I think here the positives outweigh the negatives.
What are some of those lessons that you had to learn?
Just be adaptable. And I'm using that to this day. Like just learn how to adapt. Like not everything is going to have a blueprint, but if you have the mindset of just staying positive and staying teachable, you'll be able to get to your destination. So
what was it like right before the Olympics and you guys are getting ready to push that sled? What's that feeling like?
It was surreal, like literally, to the point where I kind of felt like it was out of body. Like literally as I was pushing the sled, I was like, I'm here. And usually for me, like when I'm competing, I usually, as odd as it sounds, I really don't think. I become a machine for the most part. I just go, you know? But for the first time, I remember the last time we were going down, and I still remember it to this day, like how it felt. Kind of like just that surreal moment where you hear people cheering and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, we're actually here. And like the lights and stuff like that. I remember Sean was like, let's go. And I was like, okay, it's time. As soon as I heard that let's go, it was like,
This is it.
Focused.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
To be able to experience that, to have the whole fam watching in Texas and in Nigeria.
Yeah. And
It's a
not
big
even
deal.
just that, like around the world. I can't tell you how many like messages I got during that time where I was like, oh, you locked in too? Like Australia.
That's
All
crazy.
types of stuff. Yeah.
Wow, what a feeling.
Man, it's a feeling like a once in a lifetime feeling. I know people say that all the time, but I think that was just that experience, and it will never be, I'll never be able to live that type of experience again.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll happen in other ways,
Yeah,
but
another
I'm like,
form, but
in
not
other
like
forms,
that.
not like that. Yeah.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
I want to talk music.
I've always loved music, and I think part of what bobsled has done for me is allowed me to be very fearless. With music, there was always a lot of fear around it in that, like, oh, is my sound going to be accepted, or where do I fit in here? But that's the thing. I don't think we have to fit in. Like, you create your own avenues, you create your own sound. So, like, for music, for me, it's always been a very, like, secure outlet for everything that I do. And even like my first album that I actually released, the EP that was directly after the Olympics, because I just kind of was like, how do I put this experience in words? Like, how can I tell people how I actually feel and what I was going through without actually having to say it? And that's singing.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know I'm not going to let you get out of here unless you sing a tune for me, right?
Oh, man.
You got to. Let me hear something, man. Because we got to let them know that they got to check this out. We got to want to download and stream all of her music. She about to give you a little taste. Let's hear something.
For sure. So this is my single that I just released called Waves.
Let's hear it. Waves.
You were like the waves from the sea, and a breeze from the ocean, a current in the wave. You were a mystery to some degree by how you flow. A mystery that's known to me, 'cause now I know by you. I need security. Yeah.
What?
You know,
I didn't know
something
you
slight
had
work.
that.
Something slight
You
work.
got like that flowetry voice.
You know?
That,
You like it?
Ooh, I like it.
Who would you say it sounds like? I always
Man.
get different sound-alikes.
I hear a little, man, just from the jump, I don't know why I felt Jill Scott.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, that's an honor.
I felt a little
That's
Jill
my girl,
Scott, like,
girl Jill Scott.
nice
Come on
airy
now.
voice, and your voice sounds like an
Yeah.
instrument.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, you know what they say, voices are instruments. So,
Man,
like,
girl, you could sing.
Thank you.
Wow.
You gonna hit a note for me, though?
Oh, so long.
All right.
For this night I share.
Hey.
Nah, I'm playing. I like Stevie. I love Stevie. I can't sing. I do a
Hey,
little something.
I heard the octave, though. I heard the octave.
Man, you did your thing. I'm definitely
Yeah.
listening. We gotta make sure everybody checks you out. That was amazing, girl.
Appreciate it.
So right now you're on a music journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm just going to let it organically happen. I think that the beauty in life is like God gives us the ability to create, whether that's in sports, whether that's in music, whether that's being a businesswoman, entrepreneur, and just having, that outlet and seeing where it goes. And so I think everything's a journey.
It sure is.
Yeah.
You're on an amazing one, and I'm a fan. I'm gonna keep checking you out. I'm gonna check out your music. Make sure you tell them where they can find that right there.
So Apple Music, Spotify, my new single Out Waves just came out January 31st. And you can also stream that old EP called Mindless Thoughts. Still good. It's never old, always new, refreshing. Can't wait for you guys to hear it.
That's the amazing Ngozi. Y'all make sure y'all check her out.
What's the last name though?
Onwumere.
You slipped up this time.
Onwumere. Onwumere.
See? There you go.
Onwumere.
Yeah.
There it is.
Gold to the ear.
Ngozi Onwumere. I'm Coach CZ. This is African Sports, baby. We out of here.